Across the windswept plains of the Punjab, thunder rolled long before the summer monsoon. It was not the sky cracking, but the pulse of two colossal armies converging across a swollen river. Alexander of Macedon, undefeated Titan of the West, and King Porus of Porava, giant of the East who refused to kneel. Imagine the scene: flashes of bronze helms in the morning sun, blue-painted war elephants trumpeting like living bastions, horse hooves drumming like war drums while banks of fog curled above the Hydaspes. The air smelled of wet earth and uncertainty, for both commanders sensed the moment looming larger than empire or glory. This would be no ordinary clash, but a cross-cultural duel to decide whether Hellenic thunder could survive the monsoon rain. Alexander's veterans whispered about cyclopean beasts with ivory scythes for tusks. Porus's archers spoke of a ghostly king whose eyes blazed silver under his Boeotian helmet. Between them flowed a river likened to fate itself, wide, fast, and guarded by storms. If Alexander could not force a passage, his world-spanning dream would end right here on muddy Asian soil. If Porus failed to break the invader, India's northern gates would swing open to alien rule. On that knife edge, tens of thousands waited for a single trumpet blast. History often pivots on tiny hinges: a hidden ford, a swirl of clouds, one man's resolve to cross the uncrossable. The Battle of Hydaspes would fuse legend and reality into a story as torrential as the river itself. Alexander III of Macedon marched eastward with an ambition as limitless as the horizon. In barely a decade, he had demolished the Persian Empire, founded glittering cities, and crowned himself pharaoh in Egypt. Yet, the ends of the earth, that tantalizing phrase whispered by Greek philosophers, still lay beyond the Indus. To the young king, nothing was truly conquered until curiosity itself was satisfied. So Alexander plunged into the Punjab in 327 BC, driving his bronze-speared phalanxes across raw jungle, jagged ridges, and blistering deserts where maps dissolved into rumor. Behind him, he left libraries of legends. Before him, a land of elephant armies and Sanskrit fortresses said to be guarded by gods. India, however, was not a mosaic of meek princes. On the banks of the Hydaspes, modern Jhelum, ruled King Purushottama, Porus to Greek tongues, lord of a rich realm stretching from the Chenab to the Ravi. A towering figure by all accounts, Aryan claims over 6 cubits. Porus combined battlefield charisma with a crocodile's patience. He sat astride a seasonally flooding river that could drown cavalry, and he commanded perhaps 30,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry, 300 chariots, and, most formidable, over 200 armored war elephants. These living war towers terrified even the battle-hardened Macedonians, who had never faced such colossal steeds. Alexander approached the Hydaspes during monsoon build-up. Riverbanks oozed with mud, currents foamed white, and Porus shadowed every potential crossing point, erecting signal fires and scouting with swift riders. Traditional assaults would be suicidal, yet time favored Porus. The longer Alexander waited, the higher the river swelled. The king of Macedon thus resorted to his signature blend of audacity and deception. By staging nightly feints, parading torchlit troops along obvious fords, and blasting war horns to keep Porus guessing, Alexander masked a secret plan, a stealthy upstream crossing under cover of storm. To succeed, he needed perfect timing, iron discipline, and soldiers willing to gamble their lives against nature itself. If even one patrol warned Porus of the real crossing, the invader would meet an elephant charge midstream. So began the chess match of nerves, Porus matching every Macedonian drumbeat with his own, Alexander shifting troops like phantom illusions in the mist. Between them, the Hydaspes thundered on, indifferent yet pivotal. The contest promised more than territory. It tested strategy against raw bravery, Greek hoplite phalanx against Indian elephant corps, and Alexander's dream of a universal empire against Porus's fierce defense of his homeland. As dawn of late May 326 BC approached, the final pieces slid into place. Alexander would risk everything on one perilous night march to capture the far shore, and with it, perhaps, the destiny of two civilizations. In the thinning moonlight of an overcast night, Alexander ordered silence. Hooves were wrapped in cloth, shield rims muffled by leather, and every clink of bronze was met with a glare from stern officers. The chosen force, about 6,000 foot companions, 5,000 Hydaspes, 4,000 cavalry, and the elite companion squadron, slipped north along hidden goat trails. Tropical vapors coated helmets with sweat. Jungle insects buzzed like tiny alarm bells in the dark. At a bend shrouded by a wooded island, the scouts had discovered an abandoned fishing village where ancient fig trees leaned over the torrent. There, Macedonian engineers had secretly lashed together leather hide pontoons and bamboo rafts. Meanwhile, miles downstream, Alexander's general Craterus created pandemonium. Fires blazed, trumpets blared, and a decoy phalanx stamped the earth. Porus, watching from his royal elephant, assumed the obvious attack would come there at dawn and massed his center accordingly. All night, the Indians listened to the western bank roar with war drums, never suspecting the real danger creeping through the mist-drenched foliage upstream. When the first growl of thunder echoed across the plain, Alexander seized the moment. A monsoon squall whipped sheets of rain sideways, masking the splash of oars. Rafts lurched into the flooded river, men clutching spear shafts to balance. Lightning revealed terrifying glimpses of uprooted trees hurtling downstream. But to Macedonians who had crossed the Granicus under arrow fire and stormed the treacherous Tigris, the Hydaspes was simply another obstacle daring to be conquered. Ptolemy later recalled how rain stung like needles, yet the king's voice cut through wind. "Forward! Hellas rides the river!" They landed on a silt bank opposite the wooded isle. But fate nearly intervened. A small Indian cavalry patrol spotted the silhouettes. A brief skirmish erupted, torches slashed by swords, hooves splashing blood-warm mud. Alexander personally led a charge, killing Indian Lieutenant Hydaspes before he could escape. The alarm, however, sped to Porus's younger son, who stood watch with 2,000 horse. He galloped to intercept, but Alexander's Thessalians wheeled into a wedge and shattered the outnumbered Indians. The prince fell. Survivors fled. The bluff had held long enough. The bridgehead was secure. Porus realized too late that Alexander had outmaneuvered him. Yet the monarch's reaction was regal. He gathered his entire elephant corps into the vanguard, framed by infantry with broad shields and long bamboo spears, while cavalry lined the flanks. If the Macedonians loved shock tactics, Porus would answer with thunder of his own. War elephants, each armored in chainmail and bearing archers atop howdahs, presented a wall of living fortresses. Their presence promised to trample phalanxes and sow panic among horses unused to pachyderm scent. Rain ceased. Heavy clouds opened to reveal a battlefield glistening like polished obsidian. Alexander deployed swiftly. On his right, the companion cavalry angled toward Porus's left flank, led by the king in gleaming linothorax and plumed helmet. On the far left, Prodromoi light horse and Dahae archers formed a screen. The center comprised the Macedonian phalanx in bronze cuirasses, sarisse bristling like iron wheat, interlaced with archers from Crete and javelin-hurling Agrianians. Behind, reserves under Meleager stood ready to exploit any breach. Alexander's intent was textbook hammer and anvil, yet the hammer had never faced an anvil that could roar back. The battle erupted with cavalry skirmishing. Alexander feigned a flank attack, luring Porus's chariots and left-wing horse to chase, then suddenly wheeled back. Dust spiraled skyward as companion lances impaled the head of Porus's cavalry line. Simultaneously, Coenus's brigade swept around Porus's exposed right, a pincer closing like tiger jaws. Porus answered by unleashing elephants straight at the phalanx. The earth shook. Macedonian pikemen planted sarissai 2 ranks deep, tips glinting. When elephant hides slammed the spear wall, bamboo splintered and bronze bent. But several beasts were stabbed in the eyes, rearing in agony and crushing friendly infantry. Others thundered through, flinging men aside with trunks like fleshy maces. Phalanx order dissolved into brutal pockets, Macedonians clustering behind shields while Mahouts jabbed goads to keep their mounts charging. Horses panicked. Some cavalry scattered until Alexander himself galloped among them, shouting courage that rang like steel. "You have ridden farther than any Greek. Now ride closer than any fear." With renewed discipline, companion squadrons regrouped, targeting elephant flanks. Archers aimed at the Mahouts, and once riders toppled, elephants often wheeled wild, trampling Indian lines. Porus, atop his massive elephant, tried to plug gaps by directing units with a golden spear. Yet Greek agility gradually outmaneuvered the ponderous beasts. Hours dragged, humidity turned shields slick. Phalanx blocks adapted by forming V-shaped corridors, allowing elephants to funnel in before javelin barrages struck their vulnerable rears. Agrianians darted beneath bellies, slashing tendons. The once impregnable elephant phalanx became a milling frenzy of bleeding titans. Still, Porus refused to retreat. Indian infantry surged in waves to rescue their king, meeting Macedonian hoplites breast to breast, sword to kopis. The plain turned crimson mud. Ancient texts claim the Hydaspes ran purple for days. Spotting exhaustion on Porus's wings, Alexander committed his hidden reserve, the Thessalian heavy cavalry. Thundering across the battlefield, they smashed into Porus's right just as Coenus's flankers completed their encirclement. Like a silversmith hammering gold leaf, Macedonian forces compressed Porus's line into a shrinking oval. Trapped elephants screamed, tossing riders skyward. Infantry wedges splintered under simultaneous attacks, front, flank, and rear. The Indian line buckled. Many soldiers, seeing doom, threw down shields and sought the river's refuge, only to be swept away by the flood. The battlefield echoed with dying trumpets and the clatter of broken chariots. Porus, wounded yet towering, continued hurling spears until his mount too bled from countless arrows. Alexander, admiring such valor, ordered buglers to cease pursuit. He rode forward under a white flag, flanked only by interpreter taxiles, formerly king of Taxila and Porus's rival. Meeting eye to eye in the steaming aftermath, Alexander asked the famed question, "How would you like to be treated?" Porus answered in Sanskrit-laced Greek, "Like a king." Impressed by dignity in defeat, Alexander not only spared him, but expanded his dominion, making Porus a satrap over an even larger realm. The thunder on the Hydaspes thus ended not with annihilation, but with a handshake across cultures. The cost was terrifying. Aryan cites 12,000 Indian dead, although modern estimates suggest fewer. Greek casualties stood near 1,000, with hundreds maimed. Yet the psychological weight dwarfed body counts. Macedonians had proven they could outwit elephants, but the spectacle shattered troop morale for further eastward push. When Alexander expressed intent to march to the Ganges, his veterans mutinied at the Hydaspes. Even the invincible king bowed to collective will. Hydaspes therefore marked not only Alexander's greatest tactical masterpiece, but the geographic pinnacle of his conquest. Culturally, the battle ignited centuries of Greco-Indian exchange, art blending Hellenic drapery with Buddhist iconography, coins bearing bilingual legends, cities like Bucephala, named for Alexander's beloved horse who died after battle, seeding Indo-Greek kingdoms. Strategically, Porus's survival created a loyal buffer satrapy, stabilizing the empire's eastern frontier, at least until Alexander's death in Babylon unraveled everything. Yet the tale endured. Storytellers from Plutarch to modern cinema retell rivers dyed red beneath monsoon skies, kings fighting like demigods, and elephants trumpeting above the clash of Sarissa. Hydaspes remains a testament that even victory can carry a whisper of limits. Beyond the next river waits not just another enemy, but the edge of human endurance. Stand now on the silent riverbank, where reeds sway over forgotten bones. The Hydaspes is tame today, yet traces of bronze arrowheads still wash ashore after heavy rains, mute reminders of giants who wrestled for the world's shape. Alexander fulfilled the prophecy of Achilles, achieving timeless fame. But Hydaspes foreshadowed his mortality. Less than 3 years later, fever would silence the Thunder King. Porus, meanwhile, ruled on, blending Macedonian tactics with local valor, his kingdom a living bridge between west and east. The elephants he rearmed bore Greek armor. The coins he minted paired his Sanskrit name with Hellenic imagery. Thus, a river once dividing foes became an artery uniting cultures. For students of history, Hydaspes teaches that innovation, courage, and respect can coexist. Alexander crossed an uncrossable torrent by thinking beyond convention. Porus met unstoppable force with unbreakable dignity. Their clash birthed a rare aftermath, where both victor and vanquished emerged as kings. Such outcomes are scarce in chronicles soaked with conquest. Yet this single moment suggests the possibility that greatness recognizes greatness, even amid carnage, and that legacies can intertwine rather than extinguish. When you next hear thunder over water, remember the Hydaspes and two rulers whose ambitions drowned ordinary boundaries, but not their mutual honor. If this journey through mud-soaked battlefields and monsoon skies sparked your imagination, join our growing community of history adventurers. Hit subscribe for deep dive documentaries every week, ring the notification bell so legendary clashes never pass you by, and share this video with friends who crave stories where strategy meets spectacle. Your support lets us unearth more forgotten epics and bring them to vivid life. Together, we keep history marching forward, one riveting tale at a time.